All right, folks, in today's video, we are going to take a look at the application process for an elk tag in the state of Montana. And Montana historically has been an incredible state for non-residents because they give so many non-resident elk tags out. And until about 2 years ago, you could actually purchase those elk tags over the counter with leftovers. So non-residents have to apply for these general tags in the state of Montana. But up until 2 years ago, you could just show up and buy a leftover license because there were extras left over. 2 years ago, that changed. And for the past 2 years, the only way to get a general elk license in the state of Montana is to apply through the draw. So I'll go through that. Montana is very similar to Wyoming in that those general licenses are available for a resident to purchase over the counter, but a non-resident has to apply. And the great thing about Montana is if you draw one of those elk licenses, the general elk license, you're able to hunt about 80% of the state on that license. So 133 out of the 165 units are available using that general elk license. Montana is incredibly hard to understand. So I'm going to try to break it down in some detail that helps explain the process. But if you want a really in-depth look at the Montana draw, definitely check out Elk Talk Podcast episode 18, where Randy and I talk about pretty much everything for non-residents when it comes to the draw process and understanding that. For today, I'm going to go through GoHUNT and kind of talk about how I use GoHUNT to select a unit to apply for, as well as what unit I'd want to hunt with a general license and the difference between those two permits. So with that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into GoHUNT and I'm going to look at their application strategy article for Montana elk. And similar to the other states, the videos that we've done for the other states, there's just a plethora of information that's going to be helpful for anyone looking at Montana. Just an overview, as I mentioned, there's a ton of opportunity to hunt in Montana if you draw that general elk license. About 80% of the state public land is open for that license. There's good quality elk in a lot of the units. There are units that are general tags that produce trophy potential and trophy quality bulls. And Montana has one of the most liberal seasons for elk hunting out of any state, probably the most liberal season. This year, Montana opens for archery on September 7th. And runs through October 20th. And then the next weekend, the rifle season opens and runs through late November. So if you have the general elk license in the state of Montana, you're able to hunt basically from the first week of September through Thanksgiving, which is, you probably aren't going to find that in any other state. So just jumping in and looking at some of the data that GoHUNT's collected for Montana, you'll notice the percentage of 6-point bulls taken in Montana since 2010 hovers between 42 and 46% every year. So if you look at all the elk killed, all the bulls killed every year, almost half of them are 6 points or better. So great opportunity for mature elk, huge tracts of public land. You don't need an outfitter to hunt in wilderness areas, just a lot of great things going there. Some of the downside of Montana is if you've never applied there before, you almost need an attorney to understand the regulations. And hopefully what I can go through in the video today will break that down in a way that makes it a lot easier to understand. But just be prepared that when you open the Montana regulations, you're going to be overwhelmed. It's not really easy to follow, especially when you start talking about limited entry permits versus the general elk license. GoHUNT also breaks down the top districts to hunt in Montana based on total number of harvest. So you can see which units produce the highest harvest. Not necessarily a feature that I would put a whole lot of weight into because that might mean there's a lot of hunting pressure, a lot of tags issued in that area. But it can be a good starting point to just get an idea, hey, this is a huge unit, there's a lot of elk killed in it, then look at some harvest and success rates and be able to dial down some of those statistics from there. GoHUNT gives you antlerless draw odds, so if you're looking for a cow hunt, they've got that information in there. Number of hunters in Montana is huge. I think it's in the top 2 or 3 for total number of hunters and elk harvests. So it's definitely a state that should be on your radar if you're a non-resident looking for an elk hunting destination. The deadline for applying for Montana this year is March 15th, so be sure and get your applications turned in before then. All right, so I'm going to jump in and explain just an overview of a couple things that are going to be important as you consider applying for Montana for an elk tag. First off, know the difference between a general elk license and an elk permit. A general elk license is what is required to hunt the general elk areas. And like I said, there's 133 units you can hunt elk in Montana if you draw the general elk license as a non-resident. You have 2 options with that general elk license. The first is the general combination license, which is good for elk and deer. It also has your archery permit, base hunting license, other things added into that. Or you can go the elk combination license route. And the difference between those two is simply cost and the ability to hunt deer. So if you're looking for the lowest cost option to hunt elk, the elk combination license is going to be the one you want. If you want to be able to hunt deer at the same time, you're going to want the combination license, the general combination license. So if you are a non-resident, that elk combination license is going to cost you $885. If you go with the deer elk, the big game combination license, that's going to cost you $1,041. Again, these are not guaranteed. You have to apply for it. And in 2018, you had about a 50% chance of drawing that license with 0 points. Montana does have a preference point system for these combination licenses, so those with the most points are going to draw the license first. And last year, if we break it down here, I think GoHUNT had a good breakdown. So non-resident combination licenses in the draw for the big game combo, which is deer and elk, there were 7,700 applicants with 0 points and 3,900 of them drew, so 51%. Everyone with 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points was guaranteed to draw that license. On the elk combo, which is the elk only license, there were 2,700 applicants with 0 points and about 1,400 drew. So you had a draw odds of 53%. If you had 1 point or 2 point, you were guaranteed to draw. So just understand that having 0 points, you're not guaranteed to draw this license. And this license is critical if you want to hunt elk in Montana. There is no way for a non-resident, well, there are ways, but we're just going to focus on this here because we're looking at being able to hunt the general units. So you need to apply for the general license, either the elk combo or the big game combo. There are 17,000 licenses available for non-residents. And if we do the math here really quickly, there were around 23 or 24,000 people, non-residents last year, who applied. So that leaves about 7,000 people going into this year's draw that will have 1 point, plus all of them with 0 points coming in. You can do the math, and if the same number of people apply with 0 points, it's probably going to be about the same draw odds this year, about 50%. Now, with that being said, that is your general elk license that allows you to hunt in one of the 133 units available on that license. Aside from that, and in addition to that, Montana also has a permit drawing. So they have some limited entry areas that are available only by drawing an elk permit, a special elk permit. The catcher is you have to draw the general elk license in order to be eligible to apply for a special elk permit. So on the Montana application, you have to apply for the general, either the elk combo or the big game combo. And then on the same application, you will apply separately for a special permit unit if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to try to draw one of those controlled units, you have to apply at the same time as you apply for the general elk license. If you don't draw the elk combo or the big game combo license, you have no chance, you aren't even looked at as an application for a special permit. If you do draw the elk combo or the big game combo, and you apply for a special permit in one of those designated units, then they'll look at your application, and based on the number of applicants, you may have a chance there. I mentioned points when we're talking about the elk combo and the big game combo licenses. Montana uses preference points. So those that have the most points are guaranteed. That's why we saw those with 1 or 2 points for the elk combo were guaranteed. Those with 0 had about a 50% draw odd. When it comes to those special elk permits, the controlled limited permits, they use a bonus point system. So you now have to track 2 separate points in Montana. Your preference points for the elk or the combination licenses, and bonus points for the elk special permits. Bonus points in Montana are squared. So if you have 3 points, you get 9 entries in the draw. So when we get into these special elk units, with special permits, you're not guaranteed when you have a high number of points. Everyone who applies for those units has an opportunity or a chance of drawing. So with that explanation, I know it's confusing. Hopefully that broke it down in a way that's understandable. I'll actually go through and apply for Montana here on the video so you can see the process. With that understanding, it's not as complicated, and hopefully as you watch me apply, it can further explain it. Before we get into that though, I want to jump into GoHUNT and look at some draw odds, as well as go into filtering 2.0 and look at some of the units that you might want to apply for in Montana. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on draw odds and go in through Insider and click on Montana. And I am a non-resident, and we're going to look at elk. So it's going to bring up archery only permits, it's going to bring up general rifle, and then all the rifle permits. So when it's talking about permit, whether rifle or archery only, that is talking about the special permits. So the ones that have to be drawn after you've successfully drawn the big game or the elk combination license. So if we just look at archery and we look at 0 points, there are 7 units that are archery only special permits in Montana. And they range from 0.08% draw odds up to 20% draw odds with 0 points. As you get up to, let's say, 5 points, you've got 3 of them here at 99 to 100%, another one at 89, one of them at 2%, and another one at 61%. And if we just really quickly look at this one that is 2% draw odds at 5 points, it's District 680 and 690, or Unit 680, 690, which for those of you that know Montana elk, this would be a great unit to draw. The problem is it takes forever to draw. Last year with 14 points, you only had a 14% chance of drawing that archery only tag. Not a lot of applicants, but also not a lot of permits issued for non-residents. Probably more important here would be to, as we talk about that general elk license, that's where I hunt. I've hunted twice in Montana using that elk combination license, where you can just go and pick one of those 133 units. You can bounce around from unit to unit and hunt a really high percentage of the state. Each year I also apply for some of the special permit units, but with I think I have 5 points going into this year, I really don't have a good chance in most of these units that I would want to draw a permit in. If you think of units like the Missouri Breaks, the Missouri River Breaks, or Unit 380 or 680, the Bear Paws, some of those are highly sought after tags, but the reality of drawing those with, even 10 plus points are pretty slim. So I'll jump back and make one exception there, and that's the Missouri River Breaks. And everybody talks about the breaks in Montana. There's big elk there. It's not as hard to draw a tag, and if you're looking for a permit tag, especially as an archery hunter, that's probably one to definitely consider. So let's jump over to filtering 2.0 and take a look at Montana, and we'll break down a couple of these units. So we're in Montana. We're going to select elk here, and you'll see Montana's broke down in 165 elk units. A lot of units, a lot of management units. Again, 133 of them are available to hunt with that general elk license. So if we go and set our trophy potential to 300 inches plus, and again, that's not saying there's a 300-inch bowl behind every tree in the unit. That's just these units, you'll have an opportunity to hunt a bull of that caliber. Not that you'll necessarily even see one or have a chance at one, but that's kind of the trophy potential in that area. I'm going to click on non-resident, and I'm going to put 5 points, which is what I have this year. I'm going to change the minimum draw odds to, we'll go 20%. So I want a 20% chance of drawing with my 5 points. And you'll see a handful of the units fall off. Now when we get into the season, we have elk license general. That's our general tag. If we only want to look at the general elk combination licenses, and I'm going to get rid of some points here and go down here. Here's kind of a map of a lot of those units. It's mostly the western side of the state. As we change that to the limited permit licenses, archery only or archery license, you'll see a lot of them are central and eastern Montana. And if we change our draw odds here, so if I have 5 points and I want a 20% chance of drawing one of those hunts, it gets rid of everything on the west. So basically I'm looking at these central units. And when we talked about the Montana breaks, the elk unit over on the Missouri River breaks, we're looking at units 410, 700, kind of in central Montana on the eastern side there. And if I just click on unit 700, I'm going to get a whole bunch of information here about hunting around the world-renowned Fort Peck Reservoir area on the breaks of the Missouri River. And when we scroll down and look at my odds, we've got elk selected, non-resident, 5 points. I am 89% chance or 89% draw odds for that tag in unit 700. If you notice though, with even 2 points, you've got a 35% chance of drawing. So this is a very popular unit for non-residents to apply for these special permits. Most of the other units that you've heard about, the Bear Paws, unit 380, some of those units that produce consistently mature elk are going to take a lot more points to have any chance of drawing. So stepping back into that map there and with our same criteria, there's also another tag that Randy and I detail in episode 18 of the Elk Talk podcast, and that's the 900-20 tag. And it's an archery only special permit tag. I believe it takes somewhere in that same neighborhood of 3 or 4 points for a non-resident to draw. And in that, there are multiple units. I don't remember if it's 12 or 14, but there's several units that you can archery hunt on that tag if you draw it. It's becoming popular as well just because there are so many places to go. It's managed a little better than the general tags or the general units. But again, you have some options there. So that's a good choice for archers looking to spend 3 or 4 points, again, on a limited elk permit. Backing up to that general elk combination or big game combination, we're looking at draw odds of about 50% with 0 points. So if you're just wanting to hunt Montana and you want to take advantage of the plethora of public land, good elk areas, that general license is going to be the one you want. But if you're applying for that and you're planning on hunting anyway, you might as well apply for one of the special permits because it's only an extra, I want to say, well, we'll jump in and take a look at the costs. So going into the strategy article, I saw the costs back up here. So for a non-resident, if you apply just for the elk combination or the big game combination license, elk combination is going to cost you $974 if you want to get a bonus point or a preference point for next year. Sorry, let me back up on that. If you're applying only for the elk combination license, it's going to cost you $885. If you want to also apply for the elk permit, the special elk permit, then it'll cost you $974. They're going to tack on $9 as an application fee. You're going to pay $10 for your bow and arrow license, and you're going to pay $20 for a bonus point if you want a bonus point if you're unsuccessful. So with that being said, Montana is probably one of the most expensive states to get an elk license in. It also has really good opportunities to hunt elk, but again, the application process can be really confusing. So I'm going to jump in and actually go to the Montana Fish and Wildlife website and walk you through how to apply and hopefully explain a little more clearly what's going on with the general elk license and the special elk permit. So when you go to montana.gov, it's the official state website, and then click on hunting. This is the hunting main page. Over on the right hand side, you'll notice the license, buy or apply. You want to click there. Deadline again is March 15th. So I'm going to click buy or apply, and I'm going to click I am a non-resident. There's a lot of really good instructional videos on their website that'll walk you through this process. Hopefully I can clarify a few things as we go through it as well. So if you've not applied in Montana previously, you're going to need an ALS number. And so you can click over here if you forgot it, or if you don't have one, you apply or you get that number. Then when you apply, you need to enter that number in. So on the first page, you just enter your name, first name, last name, and then your birth date and your ALS number, and then hit continue. You just need to make sure that you're not making any false statements, hit accept, and then you want to select 2019 as your license year. License runs from March 1st through February 28th of next year. So with 2019 as our license year, we'll hit continue. Now there's a whole bunch of options here. Conservation license, under hunting you've got bow and arrow, you've got recreational licenses, you've got applications, all these different things. What we're interested in is our elk permit, which is the special permit, and then also our general elk combo license. Again, if you wanted the ability to hunt elk and deer on the same license, you would apply for the general big game combo. I'm only interested in hunting elk this year, so I'm applying for the general elk combo and an elk permit, which is the special permit. There's a base hunting license, there's all these different things you can get. All I'm worried about right now is my elk permit and the general elk combination license. So I'll submit that. Montana really confuses applicants at this point, and they ask you to fill out information regarding the special elk permit first. Now, you're not even eligible to be looked at for this elk permit unless you first are able to draw the general elk license, which is why it's confusing. So we're going to apply for the elk permit first. This is the special permit that we only have an opportunity to draw if we draw that elk license, the general elk license, which we'll apply for next. So it says, in order to fill this out, have you received and reviewed the packet? We're going to say yes. And then do we want to apply as a party? We're going to say no. Down here, you select your 3 hunting district choices. You don't have to select 3 choices, but if you do, your first one is looked at first, then your second if there are leftovers. Typically for what we're looking at, the elk special permits, unless you have several points, there's probably not going to be a need to look at multiple choices. This year I'm not overly interested in drawing a special permit. If I can draw a premium tag, great. If not, I'm planning on hunting one of the general units with Randy with a rifle this year for elk in November. So I'm going to apply for unit 380. 380-20 is the permit that is probably the most sought after elk permit in the state. It's no secret. The draw odds are 0.08% with 0 points. If you have 5 points like I do, it's still probably less than 2% draw odds, but I'm shooting for the moon on this. If I happen to get lucky and draw it, I'll change my plans in September to go and hunt that tag. If I don't draw it, then hopefully I draw the elk license, the general elk license, and Randy and I are able to hunt one of the general units with a rifle in November. I'm going to hit submit on that, and it said additional information is required. So I forgot to select the bonus point option. So if I am unsuccessful in drawing the elk permit, I need to select yes to get a bonus point. Now I'll hit submit. Now here's where I apply for the general elk combination license. And again, it's backwards on the site and it confuses so many people when they're applying, and trying to read and understand through the regulations is another nightmare. So Have I reviewed the application packet? Yes. Am I applying as a party? No. And do I want to buy a preference point if I'm unsuccessful? Again, this is for the general elk combination license. I'm going to say yes. If I don't draw that permit or the license this year, next year I'll have 1 point and should be guaranteed. Now I have 3 options. Number 1, I am not applying for an elk permit. That's a simple option, but I am applying for an elk permit, so that's not my option. Number 2 is if I'm successful in drawing the big game combination license or the elk combination license, but I'm unsuccessful in drawing the elk permit, which is likely my case this year, I can choose to retain my elk combination license and I'll have a general elk license to be able to hunt, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to select that. My other option is if I'm successful in drawing the elk combination license, but I don't draw the special permit, I can get a refund, but only 80%. So they're going to charge me $160-ish if I want a refund of that elk combination license. So if you want to apply for an elk permit, but you don't draw it, you have to forfeit 20% of your elk combination license, the $885 license, if you don't want to go and hunt on that license this year. Fortunately, last year, Montana made it so that you can just purchase a point, a preference point or a bonus point from July to September and not even have to go through this application process. So if you know you don't want to hunt this year, but you want to gain points, you can now just do that and purchase those points. And I'll talk about that as soon as we get done applying here. How did you hear about hunting licenses in Montana? I'll put a family friend and then submit. And would like to donate. No, thank you. Hit submit. And here I'll review what I have. So I've got 1 general elk combo license, 1 elk permit. They automatically add on an aquatic invasive species prevention pass and a base hunting license. And I'll hit proceed. And you'll notice I am paying $984 up front to apply in Montana. Now, if I don't draw anything, if I don't draw that elk combination license, I won't even be eligible to apply for the elk permit, and I'm going to get a refund of everything but about, just adding up real quickly here, about $85 they're going to keep in order for me to get a bonus point and a preference point, so I have a better chance next year. That's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money to front. That's all going up front, you pay for it. If I draw, but I don't draw that elk permit, if I draw my elk combination license but don't draw the elk permit, they're going to pretty much keep everything there other than, I think, a $4 refundable fee. It may even be less than that. So it's a huge investment. It's going to cost about $1,000 to go and hunt elk on a general license if I also apply for an elk permit and don't draw it. It's a big investment to go elk hunting. From here, just fill out your information, submit it, it'll ask for your credit card information, and you'll be applied for Montana elk. Jumping back really quickly, I did want to check on the bonus point fees. It's $20 for a bonus point, $50 for a preference point. I believe it's the same price when you apply for a point only in July through September, and they'll probably tag on another $5 to $10 fee for non-residents for each of those to purchase that. So just to summarize, Montana is an incredibly frustrating state when it comes to trying to understand the applications. You have to apply for your general elk or general big game combination license, and then if you're successful in obtaining that, the state will look at your application for an elk permit. If you don't draw the elk combination or big game combination license, you will not be looked at for an elk permit. The costs are high, $984. Just to apply for that elk combination license and to apply for the elk permit. If you draw the elk combination license with that $984 investment, you can go and hunt a lot of areas in Montana, a lot of public land, a lot of elk. So a lot of good things about Montana, but it's good to be aware of what the investment is, of how the process works, and what your chances really are of drawing that tag. Again, if you're not a member of GoHUNT Insider, just strongly encourage you to check that out. There's so much information from draw odds to filtering 2.0 and finding the units. Even within the general units, you're going to be able to look at those units, find out where success rates are higher, percentage of 6-point bulls. All of the information is going to help you really dial in which of those districts or units you want to hunt. The other thing is the application strategy articles that just really detail everything you need to know. So much information I didn't cover in this video is available in there. And as a reminder, if you use the code ELK101, or if you just go to gohunt.com/ELK101, you're going to get a free $50 gift card to the Elk 101 store when you sign up for GoHUNT Insider. So check the link out in the notes down below here in this video. And again, be reminded the deadline to apply is March 15th in 2019. And good luck in the draws in Montana this year.